Welcome friends. In this video I'll be talking about the transit of Saturn in the sign of Capricorn through all the moon signs and through all the lagnas. So this Saturn is currently in the sign of Sagittarius from last 2 years and couple of months. It went into retrograde motion on 29th of April 2019, and after that it will go into its forward motion on 18th September 2019, and after that it will go into its own sign of Capricorn on 24th of January 2020. So the planet Saturn is going to go into its own sign next year, which is a very good position for this planet to be in. And the Capricorn is a cardinal sign, that is a Char sign, and it is also a earth sign. So Saturn in the cardinal sign will present before you some opportunities which would be related to your business, which would be related to your career, and you would be able to take up those opportunities based upon your practical sense, because Capricorn is the sign of practicality. So you would be very practical during this time. Any person who is having Capricorn Saturn is bound to be very practical. Now talking about the transit motion of Saturn, it stays in one sign for over a period of 2.5 years. So that is the reason why the transit of Saturn is dreaded, because it's a planet of karmas, and whenever it happens to enter in any sign, that house will require lots of caution. So you have to be very careful during that period and about that house, because Saturn is a karmic planet and it will either reward you or punish you. But you need not worry, because Saturn is good for the Saturn lagna people, and it is also good for those people who are having Libra lagna or who are having Venus lagna, because Saturn is favorable for these lagnas. But even then it can be harmful for certain people. If in your natal charts your natal Saturn is weak, then this transit Saturn cannot help you much. Even if it is transiting into a favorable position, it will not be able to give you its good results if your natal Saturn is weak. So your natal Saturn could be debilitated, or it could be in some Pap Kartari yoga, or if it could be afflicted by a malefic planet. Now whenever this Saturn is transiting through a sign, during that time it goes retrograde 3 times, and then it goes stationary, and after that it goes into its forward motion. So why I am talking about the retrograde motion is because whenever Saturn is going retrograde, at that time it becomes highly malefic. So no new work should be started during that time, because any work that you start during that time would eventually give you troubles later on. So that is one of the reasons why it has been seen that people who are having many retrograde planets in their charts, or who are having retrograde Saturn in their charts, the results related to those houses are generally delayed in those people's lives, because they can only feel the result of that retrograde natal Saturn when this transit Saturn goes in the forward direction. So these people have delays in many areas of their lives. Now what is the Saturn karka of? As we all know, Saturn is the planet of karmas. It is the karka of hard work, discipline, precaution, career. It's also the karka of jealousy and perversion. So lots of people can fall into bad habits also if their Saturn is weak or in bad dignity in their natal charts. So those people who have strong Saturns in their natal charts would be very disciplined, and they would be very patient also. They have lots of patience within them, and they are generally very successful people. These people are very good with their careers, and they are very service oriented people. So those people who have weak Saturn in their charts are generally seen to be mm, in lots of sufferings, and they generally are not successful in their careers, and they undergo lots of miseries in their lives. So it's very important to have a very strong Saturn in your charts. Now coming back to the transit of Saturn, this transit is very good in your third house, in your sixth house, and in your 11th house. But in certain houses, this transit will not give you good results. Like if it is transiting in your 12th house, in your first house, or in your second house from your moon sign or from your lagna, it will be very painful period for you in terms of your own self, in terms of your expenditures, or with respect to your near and dear ones. So it's also not considered a good transit with respect to the fourth position from the moon or from the ascendant, or with respect to the eighth position from the moon or from the ascendant, because in the fourth house it will give you emotional setbacks, things which are close to your heart, like your mother, like your land, like your relatives. So they can be under setback, and in your eighth house there could be sudden happenings which could roll you down. It could be related to your wealth, it could be related to your children, it could be about your health also. Anything sudden can happen during this transit. So now let's see how does this Saturn behave for various moon signs. Friends, you have to consider from your lagna as well as from your moon sign together, because lagna is yourself, your body, it is also affected by this transit, and your moon sign is your mind and your emotions. So these two things are also affected by the transit of Saturn, and both cannot be ignored. Now coming to the Aries sign, for them this transit is falling in their 10th house. So these people would be allured with many opportunities at their workplace, and practically they have to gauge if those opportunities are useful for them or not. And if they are able to understand the pros and cons of those opportunities, they can be really doing well related to them, and in their careers they would be in lots of surveillance by their seniors, and they can expect some good opportunities and new projects coming their way. And if their natal Saturn is weak, then they can be in lot of trouble. There could be loss of job also. And if their natal Saturn is good, then they can expect good results coming from their 10th house. You should not ignore the Ashtag Varga score of Saturn wherever it is transiting. So for Aries, this Saturn is in their 10th house, so you have to see the Bhinashtag Varga score of Saturn. Saturn, if it is giving you 3 points or more than that, will do you good in that house during its transit, because Saturn is the only planet that gives you 39 points. I mean, Mars also gives you 39 points. So these are the only two planets which gives you less score in your Ashtag Varga charts. But the planet Jupiter will give you 56 points in your Ashtag Varga charts. So for the transit of Jupiter, you should have 4 points or more to be able to get good results. But for Saturn, even if you have 3 points, then also it will give you good results. So you can't ignore the Bhinashtag Varga score. Another thing is, Saturn will do very well in the house where there are lot of number of points in the Bhinashtag Varga, even though if it is his enemy sign, because here the score matters. So even if a planet like Mars is giving a point in the Bhinashtag Varga chart and Saturn is transiting over that Kaksha, during that time Saturn will give you good results of your 10th house as well as to the house to which this Mars belongs to. So these things also should be kept in mind. And if Saturn is transiting into its own house, then also it is bound to give you good results. That's why I said this transit is good for almost all the signs, because even if it is transiting in your bad house, you will be able to deal with the problems that this Saturn is posing before you. Coming back to the sign of Taurus, this Saturn goes to your ninth house. So in the ninth house, this is a transit where your involvement in higher education, in foreign travels, or in philosophy, or in religious things, or in law related matters would increase. So those who are awaiting a judgment can expect something good to happen in their favor, and those who are wanting to travel abroad can expect some opportunities coming their way. Your fathers or your seniors could need some kind of attention from you in this transit. Now, coming to the sign of Gemini, this transit will fall in their 8th house. In the 8th house, this transit is not very good because this can give you sudden troubles, but you worry not, because you would undergo lots of caution and uh, lots of common sense before you take up any kind of risky adventures. So now during this transit, your finances would be under check, like your tax could come under some kind of surveillance, and you will have to take care of that. Your children would need lots of care from you, and your friends would demand your attention during this time. There is also a possibility that your spouse would do well in this transit, and your in-laws would also do well through this transit. Coming to the sign of Cancer, for them this transit falls in their 7th house. Your spouse would need a lot of care from you, and your attention would be throughout into uh, into your business matters and into your partnership. You will be focusing towards these areas to make them better, and you will get lots of opportunities to travel outside your country also. And you should take good care of your own health also with this transit. So now coming to the sign of Leo, this Saturn goes into their 6th house. It's a very good transit. You will feel highly energetic, and no illness or no enemy would be able to stand in front of you with this kind of position of Saturn. And you will do really well in your competitive exams also, those who are wanting to appear in these exams. And lots of your debts would be cleared up during this time. And if you are awaiting for uh, some kind of money for loans, that would be sanctioned during this time, and these loans would be really used on some kind of practical purposes. Now coming to the sign of Virgo, this transit falls in your 5th house. 5th house tells you uh, to use your common sense, to use your caution before you invest your money into some kind of speculative gains, because if you do the things foolhardily, you can lose your money. And those parents who are wanting to discipline their children, or those partners who are wanting to have a baby, or those people who want to fall into a relationship, so they can see some positive news coming their way with this transit. Now coming to the sign of Libra, this Saturn goes into their 4th house. As I told you, for Librans, the 4th house, the Saturn's transit will not give them bad results. And in the 4th house, you would be seen putting your money for some kind of land related investments. Either you would be seen buying property, or you could renovate your home, or your mother could demand attention or care from you. Or in this period, you would be planning towards pursuing your education and towards achieving your goals in your education. So this is a good period for you in terms of these areas. And if you have been having any kind of problems with your relatives, you would be able to handle them very easily in this period of Saturn's transit. Coming to the sign of Scorpio, this Saturn goes to your 3rd house. It is going to give you lots of positive energy to work towards your targets, to achieve your goals. And there could be change of position change of place. You could start up with some new work, and your subordinates and your servants would be very helpful towards you, and you would work towards achieving your goals in this transit of 2.5 years. Coming to the sign of Sagittarius, this transit falls in their second house. So the matters of second house would require a lot of caution from you, lot of care from you. You have to be very careful about what you speak, about what you eat, about your family members, and about your wealth matters. So wherever you want to invest your money, or wherever you want to spend your money, you have to give a good amount of thought before you do so, and your family members would need your attention during this period of time. So it's going to be a hectic time for you, is all I have to say. Now coming to the first house, which is of the Capricorns only. So for them this transit falls in the first house itself. So which means you will become highly practical in your outlook of life. Your outlook about people, about circumstances would change. You would become much more disciplined about your own self, about your habits, about your eating habits, about your day-to-day habits, and you would become more career oriented. You would also focus more towards your status during this time, and your attention would be towards achieving some kind of progress in terms of your work, in terms of your career, and in disciplining your areas of day-to-day life, so that your health is perfected in this transit. Coming to the sign of Aquarians, for you people the transits of Saturn falls in your 12th house. So which means any kind of expenditure that you do would be on your own self, would be for your own gains only. So you may try to visit some foreign lands, and you may get to stay there, or you may expend money on your own necessities, or sometimes you can do things which will surprise you, which will be out of your normal zone of thought process, of your normal zone of your capabilities. So during this time there would be some enemies which would stand up against you, and these would be your own enemies only. These people would be your own near and dear ones. So if you use your abilities of your common sense, of your practical approach towards handling these people, you will come out of those difficulties easily. Now coming to the sign of Pisces, for you guys the transit of Saturn is falling in your 11th house. In the 11th house, this is a very good transit. You feel highly motivated and happy about the achievements that you would have in this time of your life, because career wise you will see lots of promotions, lots of growth, and there is a lot of achievements happening during this time. You can achieve fame and your name in this time of Saturn's transit, and you will get to go outside your country also, and your elder siblings would need some kind of care from you. So friends, overall this transit is quite manageable for all the signs, for all the lagnas, and I wish you a lot of happiness and success for the coming transit of Saturn. If you have liked my video, I would request you to subscribe and press the like button. I'll come up with some another video in my next topic. So I'll see you